10 years of PR failures and the correlation between crisis type and crisis response strategy. And I'm Savannah Patero.
I'm Katie Bork.
Savannah Cruz.
Tara Aber.
Fraser McAlpine.
And here's our presentation. So, today, improper crisis response strategies have a negative lasting effect on the organization's reputations. Every organization today faces some type of crisis. So we hypothesized that in reported PR failures, the response strategies that were least effective were offensive response and defensive response. Our study could possibly help companies financially, showing them that what methods work, possibly sending organizations to financial success. Therefore, having a successful crisis response strategies could ultimately help an organization protect its reputation and credibility. Our research question was, we want to know if there are any relationships between crisis type and crisis response strategies used in the past 10 years of reported public relation failures. And for our independent variable is the crisis type, and this is because generally what type of crisis occurred was something that the organization could not change. Every crisis is different, therefore creating many different crisis types, and the crisis types are determined based on the level of damage and influence a crisis has on the public. So we originally coded for 10 crisis types, 10 different crisis types, but to analyze our results, we condensed our crisis types to nonviolent and violent.
Okay, so for dependent variables, we chose the crisis response strategies, which consist of the different ways an organization may respond to a crisis. We researched what crisis response strategies companies used during different types of crises and that were reported as PR failures. This could show us what strategies should be avoided and which are the most effective. And these are the 8 possible types of crisis response strategies. Okay, for our research theme, we had 2 different ones. Coombs situational crisis communication theory, which was developed by Timothy Coombs, you can see there, to help organizations better handle different types of crises. He defined the crisis as victim, accident, or intentional based upon the possible threat to the organization's reputation. We also had denial as the most common response. So for example, a researcher did a content analysis following the 2010 BP oil spill, and we found that denial was easiest to deploy, but it wasn't the most effective. However, we found research that contradicts this, and this researcher did a content analysis of the organization Max Havelier, which found that denial is actually not always unsuccessful. Publics are initially skeptical to the crisis denial frame, but they eventually become accepting and the denial becomes largely adopted.
What we decided to do for the method strategy was employ the use of content analysis to really kind of just delve into some of the failures that we were studying. And we decided to use this because it could provide us a wide range of a variety of information about each of the crises. And it kind of just gave us the results and just kind of how each crisis related to what strategy that we were going to implement. And the population of interest, we took the top 7 PR failures from the years 2003 to 2014, determined what kind of crisis strategy was implemented, as well as any errors that may have been found in each crisis. And we also made sure that no crisis was repeated in any of the research that we found. And here's the graph of our results that we found. And I think just in general though, but I think a very important take is that there wasn't one big majority of which crisis strategy to use.
Okay, we analyzed our data using a chi-square. We crossed crisis type and response strategies 8 different times to look at their relationships and to see if any should be avoided or deployed more often. Out of all the ones we did, non-apology was the only one to show significance. And 100% of the crises that use non-apology were non-violent. This is a graph that shows violent versus non-violent and which strategies were deployed in each one. We found that a majority of the issues that we dealt with were non-violent. The organization was used the most.
So in conclusion, first to address our research question, we found that there was no correlation between crisis type and response strategy use. This diverges from the previous research that we cited in our literature review because there are multiple studies found a consistent use of denial, and we didn't find that denial, which is a defensive response strategy, was used any more than any of the other methods. Also, our hypothesis was proven incorrect because offensive response was used in only 16% of crises, and defensive response was used in only 26% of crises. So how does this relate back to the situational crisis mitigation theory? Kuhn studied what was best to use, and our content analysis instead looked at failures, so you would think that it wouldn't relate. But if you look at the distribution of all the different response strategies used, you see that it wasn't any one particular one that was used, because the crisis types that were reported, the PR failures, were really based on the crisis type and not the response strategy. Whenever each organization, we think, probably deployed the SCTT or some version of it to decide which response strategy was really best for their crisis. We think that's a major limitation of our study because we were not able to collect any information on the outcome of the strategy, so we cannot determine if a strategy was effective or ineffective for the reported crises because that information just really isn't given. We found that another limitation was that because we use different types of publications, the amount of information included for each of the crises was varied. And so standardizing that information, maybe using the same publication, would help out our research. We also noticed that no information was reported for 2009, so this may or may not have skewed our results. If we wanted to improve our research in the future, a follow-up study might want to measure outcomes to actually test the effectiveness of SCTT, since that was not able to be gathered from our research. And like I said, to standardize the information that was gathered and eliminate bias of the coder making the judgment call. Any questions?